Hello everybody and welcome back to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast as the Reds take another trip up north, this time away to Newcastle United on Sunday as we all prepare to climb up those stairs in the away end. It's going to be a fun afternoon doing that. I've never been, so I'm looking forward to climb up those stairs.
Have you never been, Max?
Never been.
You need to allow yourself an extra half an hour.
Yes.
Well, somebody of your age doesn't, but somebody of my age probably does, It's a long way up. And if anyone's got vertigo, don't go to Newcastle away.
And don't look down.
And certainly don't look down. But of course, in terms of league positions on Newcastle, we can look down.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, we can. They are 6 points behind Forest currently. We shall discuss that game and discuss the Nottingham Forest Supporters Trust, as you can already hear through his brilliant tone. Steve Bennett is joining us, who is on the board at the Forest Supporters Trust, and of course, a podcast regular to us all. Steve, we'll talk about the Trust at the end of the podcast, but a big game on Sunday again. I mean, every game's a big game, isn't it, when Forest are kind of not fighting for Europe, which is still crazy to say. I mean, how do you assess the last couple of weeks at Forest? And obviously a disappointing result against Fulham, but certainly as we were talking with Dave and others on the podcast, that Forest were beaten by the better team that day.
Yeah, I think it was a tricky fixture. I mean, on the back of the 7-0 mauling of Brighton, which was just exceptional. I'm not sure I really knew what to expect to the away game at Fulham. We've often done okay there. I can think of, the Zinkernagel win in the Championship promotion year and some other good games there. But Fulham are a good side and they're on form. It's a bit like the conversations we've had earlier in the season about Bournemouth. Fulham are a good side. They're a proper stable Premiership side. They've invested wisely. They've got a good squad of players. They know how to play together. And I'm not sure, to be honest, if we'd got a draw, whether that would have been deserved, but it was disappointing not to come away with something and just really to keep our momentum going, even though, 3 games ago we lost to Bournemouth. And yeah, this is a tricky run of fixtures. Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, City at home. But then after that, we've got, 10, 11 games, which are not at the same level of competitiveness, I don't think. And even Opta are now predicting that we're going to finish 4th. So here we go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can remember when I saw the first stats come out a couple of months ago, and it was like Forest have a 0% chance of finishing top, or it was like 2% chance of finishing in the top 3, which was crazy given that back then, we could see it, or we could see the progress this season and how good it's been. It's funny you mention, actually, Steve, about it being a tough few games coming up. We've got the likes of Newcastle, we've got the likes of Manchester City and Arsenal. I mean, out of those 3, I actually fancy us against Arsenal. I really think that will probably be, not that there's any easy game, but I'm just saying this. It will probably be I think Forest will win that evening at the City grounds. I'm more nervous travelling to St James's and obviously bringing Manchester City to the City ground. So it is funny, isn't it? How not kind of open. Well, I suppose it has been an open Premier League season, Steve, but also how things can quickly change. Forest win 7-0 one week, and then it's a disappointing result the next.
Yeah, but and I think lots of people are going, oh, well, it's not quite the same, is it? Because United are having a bad season, the Spurs are having a bad season. That completely underplays the work that's gone on at Forest, the work that Nuno and his team did pre-season and then through the season. And we're a very good, very competitive side who are where we deserve to be, I think, in terms of the football that we've played, the results that we've got. I was talking to a Newcastle fan yesterday, and his first comment was, "I think you'll beat us, Steve." Now, I'd love to have his confidence. I'm not sure. Again, I think it's another of those games that I really don't know what to expect. I mean, I remember, talking to a few people before the Brighton game, and people going, "We might win 3-0, but we could equally lose 3-0. It'll probably be a high-scoring draw." And it was none of those. I mean, it was a ridiculous game, and we sorted out our goal difference for a bit and that sort of stuff. And Fulham was similar, because lots of sides are competitive. Newcastle are certainly competitive, but it depends. Will Isak get the freedom of the park? Hopefully Murillo and Milenkovic won't allow him that and will be on him all the time. Who's going to make sure that Anthony Gordon doesn't get, the freedom of the left wing or wherever he drifts out to? That's another important area. But Newcastle have got a squad of very, very good players. Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, and whoever joins them in midfield. I mean, there's their defence is probably a bit weaker, and therefore, if both Hudson-Odoi and Elanga are fit and both play, then we've got a chance of outpacing them, because I don't think there's much pace in the Newcastle defence. So who knows? Another 3-3 draw or something daft like that. I mean, but also, if you're going to the game, take binoculars, because it's like watching a game of, Subbuteo from standing up on a ladder.
Is it really that bad?
It's very, very high, Max, and where the away fans are is above all the other areas of the ground, because the one stand that we're in is, at the back at the end, as opposed to the two sides, and it looks down over the whole stadium and over the city and for miles around. And the player, you can tell which player is which, but flipping it, they're a long, long way away.
Yeah,
and the climb up the stairs is, you'll get lots of, as you walk up the stairs with other people, you'll get lots of people going, "Are we there yet? How long is it?" And it's a long way, but
yeah,
if we come away with a win, it'll all be worth it. Getting up at daft o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely, 2:00 kickoff, isn't it? Because it's on the TV cameras.
Of course.
Yeah, of course it's on television. It cracked me up how they've, no disrespect to obviously Forest or Ipswich, but Forest and Ipswich has been picked for FA Cup TV selection on a Monday night. It's almost like, what an interesting time to put it on. It's on.
But you must be glad, Max, because in future years you'll be presenting all these. So
well, hopefully, yeah.
The more Forest games there are on TV, the better, mate.
Yeah, hopefully. I was just speaking to someone the other day actually about a gig I was doing, and a presenting gig, and they were saying to me, "Yeah, Max, just remember you need to tone your Forest allegiance down." And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Remaining
stop wearing red when you're commentating on, whoever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Remaining unbiased throughout. Steve, you mentioned Newcastle there. They've got some brilliant players. I think Anthony Gordon's on fire at the moment. I really like him as a player. You mentioned Tonali, you mentioned Isak. Defence-wise, Dan Burn, Fabian Shaw, Kieran Trippier at the back. So they've still got that strong Premier League defence. It would certainly do a job in other Premier League teams, but they come into this game with a defeat also, a thrashing to Manchester City 4-0, so they will be fired up for this. But I just wonder whether this kind of game suits Forest, where Newcastle at home, they've got that home atmosphere behind them, home advantage that everyone talks about in modern day football, and they're going to be up for it. They're going to want to bounce back, so they're going to be coming at Forest, and we'll probably like that. Sit back, almost absorb the pressure, and then we can launch that counter attack with Callum Hudson-Odoi and Anthony Elanga.
Well, if you're a regular Forest watcher, then you should have got used by now to us playing without the ball. And a lot of it is on the counter attack and the sheer speed, particularly of Anthony Elanga, but also Callum Hudson-Odoi, of being able to get round any defence. And I think also the speed of thought of people like Gibbs White and Elliot Anderson. And Elliot Anderson's going to relish this fixture, isn't he? The form that he's in, increasingly people are talking about him being on the fringes of the England squad. That's going to get announced. Is it next week or a couple of weeks' time for the?
Yeah, I think it's 2 weeks away.
2 weeks away. Thanks for the two World Cup qualifiers at Wembley at the end of March or towards the end of March. Wouldn't it be great if we got Gibbs White and Anderson in that squad, and then it's all lined up for June the 10th when England plays Senegal at the City Ground? And surely at that fixture, Tuchel's got to play them both, hasn't he? If nothing else, just to get the crowd on the side. Although ticket availability is going to be a whole different discussion for that one. But we've got it should be a really competitive game on Sunday if both teams turn up, and that's completely out of our hands. It's up to the players how they're feeling. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. They're human beings. And what they've done this season from the Forest point of view is remarkable, and it's been relentless. And let's hope it continues for between now and the end of the season, that we do clinch a European spot. And it's highly likely, isn't it? Because the coefficient through the Champions League is working in the favour of England, so we're likely to have 5 places. Then there's 2 places for the Europa League and 1 place for the Europa Conference League. And the fact that Liverpool and Newcastle have both qualified for the Carabao Cup final, if you make the assumption that one of them's they're both going to qualify in Europe, then you should be able to finish as low as 8th in the Premiership and still get into Europe for next season. So, start dusting off those passports, Forest fans, because who knows where we're going to be ending up. And just imagine if some of those songs that we've started to sing over the last couple of months actually come true. Real Madrid at home in a cold Tuesday night in February. Whoa, you'd relish it, wouldn't you? But back to the present day, because we're not quite there yet. I think Newcastle's a tricky fixture, and it could go either way. And I'll probably get some comments about this, but I don't think. If we come away and we've played well but we don't win, then it is what it is. And I hate to use the sort of Billy Davies quote, but it is what it is. But as long as we play well and compete, then what more can we ask? And I agree with you that I think the Arsenal game next Wednesday is absolutely set up for Forest to beat Arsenal. And that will probably hand Liverpool the league, even though they've drawn a few games. It'll take Arsenal out of it, which would be wonderful. And then they've got Ipswich in the cup, and then Man City. And the Man City game is sort of it's 2-3 weeks away. So it's almost let's not think about that yet, because a lot could happen in terms of injuries and form and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, Sunday will be exciting, and hopefully we get the performance that we merit from travelling all that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what, Steve? I was just listening to your points there, and you mentioned almost Gibbs White and Elliot Anderson possibly being in the England 11. You mentioned Forest hosting Senegal at the City Ground. You mentioned Forest getting into Europe next season. I'm thinking all these things, particularly from a younger, and we've discussed many a times, just as good friends and going to games and bumping into each other there. And we've discussed many a times when Forest were in the Championship of when we would ever see any success. But if you think about, if we have a European place confirmed at the end of this season, and the fact that we have an England men's national team game at the city, at the place that we all call home, it's unbelievable to even say all of those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we'd have never have ever thought that.
No, and I think, it's fantastic for me. And as I've mentioned 1,000,001 times, I've been a season card holder for 47 years, for heaven's sake. So I started in the glory days of the sort of late 70s and the early 80s. And I can remember us playing in the European Cup and stuff like that. But it's so exciting. If you're a Forest fan at the moment, how can you not be excited by what's going on? How can you not be excited by the players that we're getting to watch? To have the opportunity to watch somebody like Gibbs White, Anderson, who I think is pushing him really close, and is in a sense is a bit of an unsung hero up till now, but is there's starting to be some articles about him in the press. The Athletic have done a piece today, and then players like Murillo. What a player Murillo is. But also, on the much quieter side, people like Milenkovic, Nico Williams, the 2 wingers, Matt Sells, the keeper. There was I can't remember where I read it. There was something on some social media about how all these players, and I think we talked about it beginning of the season when with Dave, they've all got something to prove. They've all come away from clubs where, for whatever reason, partly might be injury, it's not quite worked out, and we've taken them in, and we've brought them into the Forest family, and they've formed their own family and their own relationships, and given them a platform to really demonstrate their skills and grow and develop their abilities, and the results that we're getting, that we're reaping on the back of that is just incredible. Absolutely. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable to I think just to have a squad as well this season that represents the city of Nottingham and probably everything that you want as a football fan for your team to represent. They just represent energy, enthusiasm, just everything you want, really. You feel proud of them every time they put on the Garibaldi red shirt. All right then, Steve.
And I think they feel proud about it as well. I think there is that real connection. And yes, Ryan Yates is the only one of our own in the first team squad. Zach Abbott's there and thereabouts, and will probably come in the future. But it's almost as though some of the other players feel as though they could be one of our own. I mean, I recognise that they've not been with the club for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But there is a real connection and a real association with them. A lot of that's through the incredible work that the Forest, that the club are doing on social media. But every so often you keep seeing tweets and things on social media about where players have been, caught in a supermarket, or Jota Silva was seen in Starbucks yesterday and somebody took their photo. And they obviously, whether they've been asked to do it or it's come naturally, they recognise that importance of having the connection, and that just builds the whole sort of support backwards and forwards between the team and the fans. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
No, lovely words, mate. Give us a score prediction for Sunday then, before we get on to trust related things. Is Chris Wood going to score 3 again?
I'd be delighted with something like 2-2. I'd be over the moon with 2-1 or a win.
I'll be with my youthful optimism, Steve. I think Forest will win on Sunday. I've just been thinking about it all week. I think Forest will win. I think Forest will win 2-0. There you go.
I'll happily take that, Max.
And I've put that on my little prediction thing. I try and predict the score on like my iPhone.
How successful have you been with your predictions so far?
Not very. I think for Brighton, I predicted them to beat us 2-0, and
okay,
there you go. Anyway, that's me. I'm pretty sure I said on the podcast we draw. Well, I don't want to come across as negative. I am supposed to be, the person that is going, "Come on, Forest, we'll win every game." But some games we don't. But I'm sure we will put a good performance in on Sunday, and fingers crossed, pick up 3 points. Right, Steve, on to a few little bits, and obviously the Forest Trust, which we've discussed lots of times on the podcast before. We've obviously had the chair Andy on as well to discuss all things like season ticket prices last season when all of that kind of kicked off. But the Forest Supporters Trust, as a member, I had an email to do a survey, which I did inside and I've done it as a member. But now you're opening this survey up to anybody, to all Forest fans. And just give us a bit of background on what the survey is, Steve, and what the aim of it is as well.
Well, last year we asked members for their views in advance of sort of some conversation with the club about where they thought prices were, where they thought prices might go, etc. And a lot of that was around season cards, etc. And we were able to feed that into the club. And obviously, the prices that came out, and there wasn't really a lot that we can do about that. There's a few changes going through with the trust, which I won't touch on in detail here. But some people who were at the AGM when we did that on the 23rd of January, a sort of a live event at the City Ground, will be aware of one of those two changes, and they'll be announced formally probably in the next week. But we're getting to that stage in the season where not only us but lots of clubs are starting to have conversations and discussions about pricing for next year, and we want to be as a trust fully informed, so that when we have conversations with the club through the Fans Advisory Board, the FAB, that we can go in with real data and real information, real quantitative data about what people are thinking. So we put together a survey which is all about it's all about ticketing. So it's not just about pricing, it's about memberships, both home and away. It's about people's views on their season cards. This is not a survey that's about, what do you think about the facilities at the City Ground and the loos are not good and there's no hot water and that sort of stuff. This is very specific about people's thoughts about ticketing and people's thoughts about membership. We sent it out to our members, and we're delighted that we got something like a 25% return rate. And then went, that's great, but how could we add more numbers so that we're even better informed? So why don't we make, on this occasion, and I think it's the first time we've done it, why don't we make it public? So hopefully some of the listeners and watchers of the podcast will see that it's gone out on X, it's gone out on Facebook. So it's out there in the public domain on social media. And as of yesterday, I think we'd had something like 750 replies, which is fantastic. Thank you for filling in yours, Max. It's anonymous, so it's not that people, that we're going to be able to get back to individuals with, you said this and why did you say that and that sort of thing. It's really about gathering data as to who the club's fan base are. And what we're trying to do, and the reason for mentioning it here, is just to get as many people as possible to fill it in. We'd like to get all replies back by the end of next week. So next Friday, the 28th of February. It'll take probably, depending on how quick you are going through it, 5 to 10 minutes. But it's a very genuine request to ask people to share some information. And, it starts off with, are you a season card holder? Have you got membership of the club? Have you got an away membership? If so, what level? And then, how long have you been a member? So some things there about, club loyalty, or have you, come into the club more recently, and you'll know this because you've done it. And then there are opportunities in there to add comments. So, we pick up quite often comments about the away membership, and we also know that in the future there's going to be conversations about how that runs. And the club have already announced that in line with the Premier League in 18 months, we're going to be moving to digital ticketing for everybody. That has some issues around it. So how can we make sure that the club are fully informed of all the opportunities within that, but also some of the difficulties that people might have. So it's a very, very general survey, but if we can get to 1,000 answers or 2,000 answers, then the more answers that we've got, the more data that we've got, the better informed we are in terms of having a conversation with the club.
Yeah, lovely. And I was just about to say, Steve, I kind of expect the answer, and I've talked about it on the podcast a lot, but there seems to be some good stuff off, and obviously you have more involvement than the club than I do, and many other people do. But there seems to be some real good people at the football club at the minute that are making the right decisions, and that Forest have made the wrong decisions in the past. Let's make no bones about that. However, they've got the right people in place now, and they're making the right decisions, and they seem to be doing the things that you'd want to be done when you're running a football club well. And from my experiences with Forest, dealing with them as a club and dealing with certain people and sorting stuff out, they've been brilliant, and I haven't got a bad word to say about them in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I think, we need to put things into context. I mean, when we all had that wonderful day at Wembley and got promotion, 8 weeks later, and only 8 weeks later, we were making the same journey that you and I are going to make on Sunday, which was the away game, the opening game of the season. And we've been a Championship and League One club for 23 years. 8 weeks is the shortest period ever that any club has had to prepare to go from the Championship into Premier League. And it was much harder for us because we hadn't been in the Premier League for so many years. So it was always likely that first year was going to be challenging. Let me use a polite sort of catch-all word. We got through that. We survived. Nobody who was there will ever forget the last day of the season away at Crystal Palace and the Waka Waka game. I mean, just, unbelievable. The second season was a bit more challenging. There were issues around PSR and that sort of stuff. But let's reflect on the earlier part of this conversation. We're third in the league. We've got some really exciting players. The transfer business has been remarkable. I mean, look at the purchase of Elliot Anderson. Look at the purchase of Milenkovic. Look at the way that the squad has been trimmed and refined. There's still some legacy of, the early activities of 2 years ago. You go to the ground now and it's improving. The announcements are better. The social media is better. There are some fantastic people at the club to deal with if you get that opportunity. And I think all of that and we're successful. And of course, when we're successful, that creates the opportunity for people to have dialogue and have the communication. And we're very hopeful that the club have recognised that the way that sort of ticket pricing was done last year could have been better. And so we're very hopeful that by doing this survey and getting lots and lots of information, it will give us the opportunity to have proper dialogue. Ultimately, ticket pricing, membership pricing, everything is the club's decision. Absolutely. But if the ways that we can influence that and share information that perhaps helps that decision be more accommodating of fans' needs and supporters' requirements and that sort of thing, then that's what we want to do. And like you say, there are some fantastic people at the club, at all levels of the club. Not just those that we go mad about in a positive sense on the pitch I was going to say on a Saturday, but on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But the admin, the exec, the management of the club, it's a completely different league without being sort of a cliche there to how it was 3 years ago when we were in the Championship and everything was much lower. Just in terms of, because that's where it needed to be for the Championship. But we are now, we're a proper Premiership club, and we know we're going to be in the Premiership for next year. And let's hope that we'll be in there for many years and, Europe and all sorts of exciting things. Decent FA Cup run. I mean, I could go on forever. So this is all part of, we as the trust want to be able to inform the club and have those conversations. But to do that, we need the information. We need the data. We need the data from our members, but also we want to give non-members an opportunity to participate in this. And if you fill it out as a non-member, there's a section at the end where, if you wish, but it's not essential, you can leave your details, and then we're gonna do a draw at the end of that and give a few people, small number, free membership of the trust for a year, just to say thank you for spending your time. Not to everybody, because that would be unfeasible, but hopefully that will also encourage people longer term to join the trust and see what we're doing and how we're doing it, and put the trust on a stronger standing for the future and enable us to have more of these conversations then with the club.
Yeah, absolutely. Some lovely points, Steve. And we will leave the survey link, of course, in the podcast description. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be there. If you're watching on Facebook, it'll be there in the description. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else, it will be in the description bit of your chosen audio platform. We will leave it there. We'll also try and leave a little QR code on the bottom of the screen. If you are watching, no worries, mate. I've got to say, I was just looking at it, actually. That pinboard behind you, Steve, with all those tickets on, and there was memorabilia. You'll be able to put the European ones on there soon.
Oh, I do hope so, Matt. I've still got, I found it the other day, I've still got my original Forest scarf from the 77, 78, 79 and 80 seasons, with all the enamel badges of the European Cup games that we played in 78 and 79. It'll never come out the wardrobe, and I'll never wear it again unless, and this is a commitment, unless we get to a third European Cup final. Because as you know, and I've bored other people silly, I never got to the first two. I do have tickets from them, but it's a whole long story. But I never got to the first two. And I always said, well, it's not a problem. I'll go next time. And I said that in 1980. And I've been waiting, like most people, 45 years. So I can't wait.
Yeah. Neither, mate. Talk about getting ahead of yourself on a Friday. Yeah, no, definitely.
You've got to have aspiration, Max. You never know.
Yeah, of course.
You've got plenty of aspiration, mate.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Probably too much. Probably people have got me for dreaming. It's funny, actually, you mentioned the scarf thing, Steve. I had my original one, and I wore it to every game since I was probably, when I first started going to Forest, 6-7 years old. I think that was my first ever game. And that scarf got left on a train from Nottingham to Manchester Piccadilly, and it's never been seen since, which is just gutting. So there
It's
we go.
probably in
That's
the same place as a coat I left on a train at Manchester Piccadilly. Who knows where that is? But if we see somebody travelling around wearing a forest scarf and a blue coat, then
they've got our property.
They've got our stuff.
We will find them. Right, Steve, thanks, mate. Appreciate it. See you on Sunday at Newcastle. Safe journey up. Safe journey to all the fans up. Really looking forward to it. My first visit to St James's. Missed out on the last two, so buzzing and hopefully seeing Forest win from far away with my binoculars on. Steve, have a good one. Have a good day off. Well, have a good resting day on a Saturday tomorrow, mate, as well with no football because we play the Sunday. And thanks as always for listening. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us across Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And here is to a big 3 points on Sunday. We'll see you soon. You Reds.
Thanks, Max. Cheers.